Myles Loftin.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining me in this talk for a conversation about your work, your process, and everything you're up to.
Thanks for having me.
All right, cool. So, photography is what you are primarily known for, but what does an image mean to you?
To me, I think an image can represent a lot. I think it can uh, represent the past. It can speak to the future. It can represent possibilities. I think like images are limitless, and I think that's why like I keep making images because there's so much that you can say. It doesn't stop with just one, and I think like that's what it means to me.
When I think of your work, I was a fan of your work long before I met you, and I was a fan of your thought process behind an image. How are you retelling a story of Black men, of Black queer men, of through color and light, and even just like happiness, joy, smiling, and everything? What was that thought process like for you to create those?
I think a lot of the thought process behind my work comes from, like my own environment. Like one of my first projects that I did when I was in New York was called Hooded. And it kind of speaks to what you're talking about with this, you know, idea of positivity and joy and, you know, a different representation of Black masculinity. I think all those were kind of encompassed in that project, which sort of stemmed from me seeing representations of young Black men that, weren't reflective of who I knew in my community. And so I think from seeing this and seeing the ways that it affected, how me and my friends are perceived, I decided to pick up my camera and, turn the lens to the people who I felt reflected, um, the closest reality that I knew.
When I look at the images that you created, I think it was called Hooded, and you are retelling some stories that we were told about what it means to be a Black male. What was that process like for you when you came up with it?
So for me, I think for a lot of the work that I make, and specifically this project, a lot of the, you know, inspiration for it and the goal of the project usually comes from the people that I'm around and the community that I have around me. I think that Hooded came from a frustration of me seeing representations of young Black men that weren't reflective of my reality. I was seeing just a lot of negative imagery that was just showing very like narrow ideas of who we are and who we could be. And so I saw it as an opportunity to create something that represented what I need to be true. And so I think like that's kind of usually my approach when it comes to image making is like seeing what's being projected, seeing what's around me, and trying to, I guess, like mitigate that through the use of image making. I think like that is, one of the main things that I try to keep in my work.
But that's beautifully put. You also did it in such an elegant, crisp, light, almost serious topic, but not too heavy type of execution. It wasn't layers of content and it wasn't like choresome. I guess that's the word for it. It was easy. It was a lightness to it, an elegance to it, and that's what I loved about it so much too. That it was it's an image, and then also the very act of joyfulness, a smile on your face, relaxation, vacation, is a political act in itself for Black bodies,
Yeah.
because your body is of service.
Right.
Typically, it's either who are you working, what ball are you throwing, what chore are you doing or picking up or delivering, or what can you do for sex. Your body is of service of something.
Right.
So to be,
In most cases for us.
or historically thought of that way,
Yeah.
or it's been transported from
Exactly.
one institution to another. And so to just be in a grass, laying back and smiling in itself is a political thing.
Right.
And that is just a one image of it. That's what I love about the elegance of the simplicity of it.
I appreciate that.
It's beautiful. And that's what I always bring up to people all the time, as like you can say so much with just a smile.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's also color,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because like that is something that I think has been like a through line in most of my work, is like um color. It's really like one of the things that I think I'm considering a lot when I'm making images in like the pre-production and the post-production. And specifically with that project, I really wanted to sort of like have these exaggerated, vibrant colors, because I wanted there to be like a stark difference. I guess to kind of represent like how it felt for me to see the images that were being pushed in regards to the representation of young Black men. It was like when you see these photos, they're usually like black and white, or they're super muted, or there's just like a dark energy around these types of images. And so I guess for me, I wanted to flip it on its head and create images that felt optimistic and vibrant, not only in the tonality, but in the emotion that was present in the images.
And that's the way I also see that you live your life. I mean, I see you also through social, and so I'll click on there and I see, okay, you're with your friends, you're with your group, you're with your community group of friends, and you're not over explaining. You're out there having fun, dancing, shaking it up, DJing, creating mixes, creating visuals, all at the same time. And so you're almost living your series as well. And I know you've done way more work since that. We'll talk about it. But you are living. We all have trauma. I think every person on this planet. I think we all, if you make it off, this planet, we have trauma. Black people have another layer. Gay people have another layer. We have many layers to it. You decide to continue. You press forward with this optimism that I see through.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely I believe that I'm the type of person that tries to see the glass half full rather than half empty. Even if there is a negative circumstance, I'm usually gonna try to like see some sort of positive out of it. And so, despite all that I may go through as someone who is young, Black, and queer in a city that is not really easy to exist in, I still try to remain positive throughout that and live my life as, boldly and uniquely as I can, despite the odds.
What does music mean to you?
Music is super important to me. I think it was definitely like one of my first loves for sure. I mean, I've always been an artist and I've always been interested in art. And so I think, at least visual art and music have kind of been, existent in my life in some way, shape, or form. Like my parents, I feel like had a big impact on my music taste and just like my attachment to music. Like growing up, my mom and my dad, they would always be playing something. Like it was very rare to come in the house and like it be silent. Like when I was like early growing up, from like elementary to middle school, my dad, he was like really big into like reggae. So he would listen to like a lot of Sean Paul and Maxi Priest and like all of those people. And so that was kind of like some of the early people that I was listening to. Big fan of Sade, so like she was on the rotation. My mom, she was more of on like the R&B sort of tip, so she was listening to like Jill Scott, Music Soul Child, Raheem Devon, um, and so like me and my sister, we would be in the back seat like singing along to like all these songs. And it's actually funny because like I'll always tell my mom how like me and my sister will be listening to like Music Soul Child, for example, whose like lyrics are not exactly PG, but my mom, she don't be listening to like the lyrics like that. So she's just listening to it for like the vibe. And we're in the back singing like
Don't even know about
yeah,
wonder about
yeah.
those all those reggae
and
songs.
and now we have like the context for it, but yeah, that was kind of like the our foundations in terms of music. And then like towards like 7th 8th grade, like into high school, my dad started listening to a lot more like electronic music and that sort of thing. Like he shifted from, because he was listening to a lot of like BBC radio because they would have like dance hall mixes and stuff like that. But I think that eventually led him to like listening to more like stuff like Disclosure. Like the first time I ever heard them was because of my dad. The first time I ever heard 212 by Azealia Banks was because my dad was listening to BBC radio, BBC One Extra, and I was in the back seat, and I was like, who is this girl? Like, and then that led me to like listening to Fantasy, her mixtape, and like just like a whole different world of music. I took my dad to a Luna George concert for his 40th birthday. So I think they definitely like instilled a love of like music and seeing live performances and stuff like that. And it's definitely carried on to adulthood because I, even on my own, I like always am playing music and stuff. And it's blended with the work I do because on set, you're in these studios and you're trying to get people comfortable. Some people who, may have never been in front of a camera before or are not used to being in front of a camera. And so I was often, or am still oftentimes, using music as a way to sort of bring people out of their bodies and or at least maybe not bring them out of their bodies, but bring them in closer in connection with their bodies, because I think music has the power to do that. And so then that led to me starting to DJ because I would like play playlists on set.
Of course, I don't know why I never connected that. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
like
always
a whole,
thought
yeah.
I always thought it was like that's a vocation, that's fun. I never thought, of course, you want to move a photo set, and that's the music is blasting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like every time I'm on set, I'm usually the one who's like, all right, where's the Bluetooth? I'm connecting, because otherwise it's gonna be somebody else playing music. And when I'm working, I prefer to like listen to like, what I want to listen to. Obviously, I'm gonna ask the subject like, what are you listening to right now? But I do like to kind of set the tone with the music that I play. And so I would like play stuff on set and
Tell me your set music.
my set music, it's usually I will go on my SoundCloud and I'll go through my SoundCloud likes. And so on SoundCloud, it's a little bit better than Apple Music and Spotify because you'll find like Okay by JT, but it's like a Jersey club
Oh
mix.
yeah, that's what it is.
Or it's like Gerard by Solange, but it's like a baile funk mix. So it's a lot of that where it's like songs that are popular, but they're like edited a little bit.
And you can't do distribution. I get like bounce and
Yeah,
stuff there. I'll
exactly.
get like country ball beats and
Exactly,
everything
exactly.
from SoundCloud.
Vogue beats,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's usually a combination of like that sort of vibe, like, kind of like a little clubby. I want people to like feel encouraged to like move and stuff like that.
And then when you're at the club,
Uh-huh.
and you're behind the booth.
Yeah.
Is it the same?
It's usually kind of the same. Yeah. I mean, I think I find myself like really drawn to music with like heavy bass, which I think is why it's like there's like a lot of like Brazilian music involved. I've been spending some time over the last couple of years in the Dominican Republic. So just being out there and like listening to like what my friend has been listening to who lives out there and like her friends, that's kind of made its way into the stuff that I play. So it's kind of like, taking from different experiences through traveling, through meeting people. Yeah, I think it's an interesting representation, I guess, of my lived experiences in a way, because you get music inspiration from all over.
You're from the DMV area?
I am. I'm from PG County.
How does that it definitely has that sound out there is definitely specific. Does that
Yeah.
inform it at all?
I guess I would say so. Yeah. I mean, like, I didn't grow up listening to like a whole bunch of like go-go, which is like the main sound out there, but it definitely was present, like at dances or like you go out for like events and stuff in DC, like Taste of DC or um, like they have a festival called Mochella. So like it was definitely around. So I think like the elements of that music has definitely influenced my taste as well.
I think sometimes we're told as black people what our narrative is, even by other black people. You know, like I think that I'm from Maryland. I'm from Louisiana and Maryland myself, and I think I know what it's like to be a suburban black boy.
Yeah.
You know, and so you know, and so I think that when you are able to use that in your work and you're finding a sense of joy of visuals and of music and of bringing people together, and it's not necessarily the same stories of trauma that Hollywood tells us that we have. Like I always just like when I say where I'm from, they're like, oh, like The Wire. Like, no, not at all like The Wire. But and that's also great too if you're from Baltimore, the certain areas of Baltimore. Your life is
Yeah,
not. You
because
can be literally
that's
that's
an experience in itself. It's just not
100%.
my experience. Yeah, that actually, I want to say 90% of the time, especially if I'm asking a white, I mean, if a white person is asking me where I'm from, and I say I'm from Maryland, they just assume Baltimore. I think mostly because it's like the most known area there. But yeah, I'm from Prince George's County. I'm from this area called Accokeek, Maryland, which is like a small part of like Southern Maryland, like 40 minutes outside of DC. But it was, I think growing up there, um, definitely gave me like a unique perspective on my blackness and my identity, um, because it doesn't manifest in a negative way. I think that like I grew up around a lot of positive examples of blackness. And so my attachment to blackness was never rooted in shame. It was always rooted in like pride and joy because, I had black teachers from the time I was in elementary school all the way to graduating high school. My friends were all or mostly black people. I got to see examples of black excellence at various stages in my life. And so I never saw that aspect of my identity as a fault. I saw it as something that's like amazing. And so I think that that is present in the type of work that I make because it is a celebration of identity rather than an apology for being black.
It lets go. If I'm gonna say put words, and I don't want to speak for you, it doesn't have a justification for it.
Exactly.
And sometimes I find that there's this, no, 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 we're beautiful, we're just like you. It's
Yeah,
like
like
no,
or it's like there's like we can do this too, or we can be beautiful too.
And
And it's like, no,
you're like, I know that.
we
We're
just
not even, yeah,
are.
exactly.
We
We don't
just
even have to talk
are.
about it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to say. And that's what I think is so great. And then with the stuff you produce and the way you think about it. And then so what you're doing also, of course, you're also as any person as a photographer. And when I look at your social, also, you're very a fashionable guy too.
Thank you. I appreciate
So,
that.
are
I be
you
trying
you
sometimes.
you are you? Where does the relationship between you and the stylist? Is it collaborative, or do you kind of pick your favorite stuff to kind of to kind of focus your attention on a shoot?
It's definitely collaborative. I mean, I'm a person that is a very big believer in collaboration, especially within art, especially within like creating like a fashion image, for example. So I love, when I get to work with a stylist who has, a very clear point of view. Because we can, bounce ideas back and forth. They have ideas that they are bringing to the table and references and stuff like that. I think I definitely come in with a point of view of, maybe like a type of silhouette that I envision, or just like an energy that I want to bring to a shoot. Especially if it's like with talent where, the images that I want to create, I want to sort of reflect that person's like essence. So there's usually certain ideas that I have, but when we're on set, it's a conversation always. We'll try something on. If I don't like something, I'm usually going to like um express that. Maybe not like in like the most like um aggressive way, but I'll let my opinion be known so that we can, work towards like a middle ground where we're both happy with like the images that we get.
I see. It seems to me that you're very collaborative and a kind person.
I try to
And
be.
I'm not saying nice. I'm not saying a pushover at all. I'm saying kind.
Yeah.
And so that's another fine balance to have in life, because sometimes people confuse kindness for, people say confuse kindness for
Kindness for
weakness.
weakness.
But that
Yeah.
is true. People confuse patience and kindness for, oh, well, let me just do this. Let me say this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. But I don't think I tried to um establish boundaries so that that sort of thing doesn't happen. I think also, having been and still being a young photographer, you just like learn how to assert yourself in certain ways so that people don't like take advantage of you.
And also, your vision is so crystallized. More so, I think people are still searching for it at a later age than you are right now. But we've been an artist that can really understand and visualize where you want to go creatively, and so everyone has to kind of fall back to center. They can. It seems like to me that the stylist or even the talent, they're going into the world that you have established, and so there's room to play once you're in the world.
Right.
But that's the way I look at it. So you can be generous and collaborative, but at the same time, you're on the Miles plan.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, they're in my world for however long we're on set.
Do any shoots make you nervous?
Do any shoots make me nervous? Yeah, actually. I recently had a shoot that made me nervous. It was last October. I was in Los Angeles and I was directing some videos for Google Chrome. And I obviously primarily work in still images, and video has been something that I've been, slowly getting more comfortable with. But this was like the first big commercial opportunity that I had gotten to do directing work. And so I was kind of nervous because it was like, whenever you're doing something for the first time, there's always like those nerves of you want to do a good job, and especially when there's a big client like Google attached to it, you really want to do a good job so that they come back. Um, and so I was just like a little in my head, I think, at first about my ability to execute the job. But I had to keep reminding myself that, like, okay, Myles, like, you did work on this treatment, you did submit it. Um, these people did choose you to hire you for this thing. So clearly they see the potential in you to be able to execute this thing. Also, on top of that, I had a team of people that were, on my side to be able to help me execute this thing. And so, although I was still nervous and had a bit of anxiety, when it did manifest itself, I did try to remind myself that, like, okay, I'm not alone. I am meant to be here. This is going to go fine. And then once I did get on set and, was going through the motions of everything, it was almost like second nature. Like it all went well. The day went really smoothly. The client was really happy. And so I was glad that I didn't allow like the nerves to interrupt my workflow. Like they were there, but I think they maybe encouraged me to do an even better job. I think like nervousness is not always a bad thing. It just, I guess, depends on how you direct that energy.
I know exactly what you mean. I
Yeah.
think it's a lifelong struggle for people. For me, at least I can say it's like anxiety or nerves,
Hmm.
I get nervous before this interview. I get nervous before everything.
Yeah.
But I try to funnel that into, okay, just do a good job. And I'm not a professional anything, professional anything about this, but I've recently started rock climbing,
Oh,
indoor rock
really?
climbing, right? I'm not no pro, but what it does is that it teaches me to be focused on the moment and being okay with being nervous. Don't you're gonna be all like things going through your head. You may be afraid of heights. Your arm might be hurting, or something like that might be going on, and you have to say, okay, all right, that's fine. That's all fine. That's all happening right now. But what are you doing next? Take a breather for a second. What are you doing next? And that's been. I'm always trying to dissect with people, like, how do you get past it? How do you get? Because anxiety and nerves has been a thing for me probably my whole life in a weird way. Like I'm someone who I can make a speech in front of a bunch of people. I can do a lot of stuff, but at the same time, it weirdly like it depends on if the chemicals in my brain are
Yeah.
in a certain way. It's very weird, and so I'm always searching for that. Like I was speaking earlier today to Veronica Webb, who's modeled since the late '80s and '90s, and she says she's doing a show. A show tonight, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm nervous." And I go, "What do you mean you're nervous?" She goes, "So because the sewers, the designers, everyone wants you to do a good. We all want to show up and do a good job."
Exactly.
Well, that's really interesting. So
Yeah.
it's not about insecurity; it's about energy.
Yeah. And I think if you're not nervous about something, then I don't think you really care about it that much.
What's next for you? What are you excited about?
Um, what's next for me? Well, my plan is I'm really interested in diving a little bit more into the fine art world. And showcasing work in galleries, more like physical stuff like prints and books and that sort of thing. And so I'm at the moment working on a proposal for a project that I've been working on um, in the Dominican Republic, shooting local designers. And so I'm working on trying to get that into a gallery or make a printed version of the work that I've made. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to doing more fashion work. Just like constantly expanding upon like the things that I've been working on since I moved to New York in 2016.
You're doing amazing work from, even athletes and fashion to personality pieces. It's been really it's such a great growth and progression. I love the early stuff. I love you wearing red, eating pasta. I love
Yeah,
stuff like that.
that was, I think they were red
Red
peppers.
peppers. There you
Yeah,
go.
that was
Sorry.
when I was in London, in my kitchen. I do actually. I do want to. I've told myself I want to like at some point go back to like live there for a little bit. Because I was there for 6 months, which is like a decent amount of time, but it's just enough time to get yourself settled somewhere, kind of figure out the social scene or whatever, have some fun, and then it's like you're going back to America. So by the end, I was like, oh, I really like it here. Like, I have some friends. I know where the girls are at to go party. I know where to go shop. I have a good ramen spot. Like, I have figured it out a little bit. So I definitely want to go back, especially now as now I'm 27. And I think when I was there, I had just turned 21. Like, yeah, I just turned 21 when I was there, and I was definitely way more timid than I am now. It was like a new space for me. I was still like breaking into the world of photography and stuff like that. And I remember like certain people that like were around me when I was there that I was like kind of nervous to interact with. And then now we're like, we're friends and stuff because we've met in New York or whatever. And I think I just have a little bit more confidence in speaking to people and introducing myself and that sort of thing. So I think it would be nice to approach the city with a new perspective.
And I know that you were a student. Were you a student at that time in London? Okay, got you.
Yeah, I was a
Yeah, sorry.
student at University of the Arts London.
And then now you kind of taken the role of ICP, kind of instructing students.
Yeah.
How was it to feel like you're kind of working with new upcoming talent?
Yeah. So it's funny because I got the offer for that the same week that we went to the gala. So that I started my first class as a teacher at ICP in the fall. It was a 5-week lighting class. And it was really
Are you
cool.
tough?
Am I
Yeah,
tough?
are you tough on the
No, I'm like
student?
very much like a laid back. Like if you ask anybody, I'm a very chill person. So I think I kind of, I'm that way on set. I'm like across the board. So in the classroom, it's very much the same. A very like chill environment. Everybody is there to learn. Everybody has different work. Everybody has different goals that they have. And so I kind of just approached it that way. Also, it being my first class, I was just kind of open for the experience shaping itself into wherever it was kind of meant to be, based on, what I was feeling, based on what the students were feeling. And the class ended up going really well. This is another instance where I was like nervous because I'd never done teaching before. Um, I do lighting in my like, day-to-day work, but it's a different skill to do something and then to teach it. And a different thing to teach it and to teach it for someone to understand. Because there's a lot of teachers that just teach and they're not teaching for people to understand. But there's a way that you have to communicate things to people in order for them to actually pick up what it is that what you're saying to them.
I find it difficult. Yeah, I've done some court teaching at new school, with graduate kids at new school, to not dictate my creative onto them.
Yeah.
It's to see what they want and to kind of find a solution in that. It might not have been my choice. It might not be my idea, but how do I get them? So if it's a lighting course, you might be like, I don't want red gels. I don't like red gels.
Right.
But how do I make red gels work in this thing they want to produce? That might be tough.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like, there may be a student whose work is different than maybe the work that you typically are interested in, but still finding a way to guide them to reach a solution that is best suited for them, and not you. And so I think like that requires like a certain level of like detachment from like your own like self and ego, to be able to help somebody else.
Yeah, it is a tough thing. I think that you are so fantastic. Or you come into my life every once in a while, and I badger you about, hey, let's do this. You want to go dinner? Let's do that. 'Cause I think that you are so cool and such representation of like, and you're not a baby, but like the kids coming up and everything. So I really
Yeah,
enjoy talking
I'm still a
to
little
you.
kid, kind of. I still do feel that way. I don't think that like childlikeness of when I first came to New York. I think there's still some of that there.
Keep
Yeah,
keep
yeah, and it helps. Like recently, I feel like I spoke at FIT, and these students were juniors, and it's like often when you speak to students, you're kind of reminded of that energy that you had when you were in college or first starting out at something, and you're like, kind of nervous about showing your work to somebody, but you're like, you want to get some feedback and you want to jump at every opportunity and that sort of thing. And so that sort of stuff is nice to, keep myself going.
I love the energy, more so even than the work output. Like I don't, no, yeah, it's not great, but it's not supposed to be great right now. You're supposed to try. I always tell them, like, you know what, be a mimic for a while. Like just follow. If you like this one person, have your work look like them, then you'll find your own voice. So I really love this talk, man. I wish we could talk so much longer, but this is a cool time, cool pants.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you for having a really, really great conversation with.
Absolutely. We're going to stand up for a second, and he's going to do a video. And I'm going to hopefully hug you. And you didn't even smoke. I thought you were going to smoke one thing.
Oh, I'm not really in the business of smoking on camera.
Oh, good. What is that? It's a flavor smell.
It's
right?
It's like blue raspberry or something. I actually don't prefer the fruit ones because like you can smell, like you could smell it, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of foreign. I don't know. Is it weed or is it nicotine?
It's not THC. Okay. It's not THC. It's nicotine. Nicotine. Yeah.